Okay, so welcome back. It's our second video. So my name's Dave Millard. I'm here with Charlie Hargood and Ricky Prince, and we're going to have a look at the second batch of games from the third coursework from the Games Design and Development course at Southampton. So Ricky, do you want to say a little bit again about what we asked the students to do for these games?
Yes, certainly. So the aim with this coursework was to build a game that demonstrated some innovation from the games industry within the last few years. The things that we were asking them to do were to implement either adaptive difficulty, procedural content generation, the use of a novel interface to the game, so either the visual output or the input mechanism, or to build a game that used real-world location-based elements, and to demonstrate how their game implemented those innovations effectively.
And we were particularly looking at whether we're effective. You know, whether, is it just a gimmick? Was I think a key question for us, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get going.
Okay then. So our first game in this batch is What's Going On.
Okay, so who looked at this one?
Me, I think.
Aha.
Okay, right. So we've got some controls.
So
AD space, and then crikey, some weird buttons. X and Z.
That's unusual. Yeah.
Yeah, no mouse. So it's A and D to move left and right, space to jump, and X and J to, or J and K, or X and...
It's
I went
optional.
J and K when I was...
Okay.
Yeah, it's in case
Oh, it's like a platformer. So,
right,
space to jump. Oh. Oh, okay.
Okay, alright, that's interesting.
Alright.
So what does...
So yeah, this is dynamic difficulty. The idea is you've got a bunch of
what's the
different types of enemies, and
you're trying to attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got a melee attack, I think that's J on the keyboard.
Yeah.
And then you can also shoot, but only if you collect the bullets.
Yeah. So what's interesting, I'm just watching poor Charlie here struggle along.
Yeah.
It's because they've got an unconventional control scheme.
Yeah.
It's incredibly hard to play. And it never really occurred to me how much
jump
that...
is not where you'd expect it to be.
Yeah.
And I can't get up to the bullets because of the...
Yeah.
Can you jump
I'm trying
up there?
to hit this guy, but I don't think I can hit this guy because his hitbox is bigger than his B hitbox.
You need to get some bullets, Charlie. You need to get some bullets.
I know, but getting up there is easy.
I had exactly this problem.
Oh yeah, you can pick whatever that is.
Get the armor.
What's that?
Yeah.
Armor.
Right. Okay. Right.
So I think the trick is to get onto one of these platforms.
So the adaptive difficulty then is presumably the power-ups that are dropping.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And the enemies, maybe. Oh, I'm getting knocked off the screen.
I can't remember if the enemies were.
I think that
might be the. I think the
Charlie's disappeared.
The number of enemies that generate.
The
number of enemies that generate. I think might be related.
I think you're going to have to start again. I think you've discovered a bug where you just get manipulated off the screen and you can't get back on.
Yeah, I can't.
Is there an easy way of
escape.
restarting?
No, you
have
have
to shut it and.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. This again. Right. Try again.
So,
right. Here we go. What's going on? Take 2.
Right, so what we
one of the issues I had with this was that the dynamic difficulty drops you pickups to help you do better, which is a good way of doing that because it lets the player decide whether to engage with the dynamic difficulty. The problem is that the dynamic difficulty is going to turn on when someone's struggling to play it, but it drops everything at the top. And the hardest thing about the game is actually getting to the top.
Yes.
So almost the layout of these platforms.
An interesting design choice as well, being able to not shoot these guys.
And not hit them.
Not melee them, yeah, indeed. Because they're...
Yeah, no, I take your point. It's...
What's the objective of the game again as well?
Survival.
So basically, again, it's a similar thing to some of the others we've looked at, which is that the core game design is a little bit lacking. So in this case... the controls are awkward. It's difficult to move around the screen. It's not quite clear when you're hitting enemies and when you're not hitting them. And then the adaptive difficulty kind of suffers because of that. So as you said, it's difficult to get to the top. It's also not quite clear to me what the power-ups are.
What's changing or when.
Yeah, and
so
kind of when the state's
the yellow
changing.
ones are bullets and the grey ones are armour.
And again, these things are about meaningful choices.
Yeah,
so about survivability.
Hitboxes are a bit weird as well.
So why are you even attacking them? Why aren't you just standing on a platform in the middle of the screen, dodging arrows?
Yeah. I can't actually hit this guy. I'm trying really hard and I can't hit him. There's got this weird thing when you hit as well, you sort of stop and bounce back.
Yeah.
Oh, you can also only shoot when stationary? Can you only melee when stationary?
No. though.
Like you can't jump and shoot.
Look,
and
if it's
things
good
like
enough for League of Legends, it's good enough for this. Right?
Yeah, indeed. So my impression is that although they may have implemented some adaptive difficulty here, I'm not really feeling it. I'm just sort of feeling there's just a continuous wave of enemies. Right? It doesn't really feel like it's.
So I think the problem
in a way
here is
that
actually the core
feels
gameplay.
meaningful.
I think there isn't meaningful play in the game because your
That's
actual.
not quite true. I think it's just really difficult. It's not well balanced.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's not quite that. Maybe
so this
it's
is a bug as well because I'm chopping this guy pretty good at the moment and it's not working.
killing him.
And now I'm off
So maybe the problem is to do with your strategy, right? Because the best strategy is not to jump around the screen and try and get the things and try and kill the enemies.
Yeah.
The best strategy is probably to get yourself somewhere in the middle and just stay there as long as you can.
But the platforms disappear, so there's not a lot of camping, unfortunately. But yeah, it doesn't really show you the.
It doesn't gel, does it?
It doesn't show you all of the.
Yeah.
the
Okay.
dynamic
So let's
difficulty.
think a bit carefully about this. So the idea of having this sort of survival platformer is a little bit of an interesting idea, but adaptive difficulty, as we've spoken about in the past, is a good candidate for survival-based games. However, it doesn't really feel like it's having a sufficient impact in the game in this case, and the game itself is.
But also, it's like there's no. So there's no score. There's no time.
Yeah, it feels directionless, doesn't it?
There's no kind of momentum to the game. So if the game state was manifest in kind of how quickly you could score or these kind of elements, you know.
Yeah.
So if you were doing well, the game gets more and more difficult, but your ability to score gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
So you can rack up really big scores really quickly if you're playing really well. That kind of makes sense. But here it just feels meaningless. It feels like you're not quite sure what you're doing or why you're doing it. So while there are elements of it are working,
I love how they pile up.
While there are elements that are working, the actual game design itself is not quite sufficient to carry the adaptive difficulty part of the game, if you like.
I agree.
Yeah. Don't forget to make a game before you start adding dynamic difficulty.
Yeah. Okay, then shall we move on?
Yeah. So fun elements, but didn't quite come together, I think.
Indeed. So our next game is Of Fire and Ice. No copyright infringement intended.
Yeah, I saw this one. I quite like
Right,
this
so
one.
got a couple of levels and
Okay.
have a look. All right, okay.
Oh, another platformer.
Another platformer.
So you've got health and ammo.
Health and ammo. I don't actually know how to attack. Do you know how to attack, Ricky? There was no instruction.
Was it not?
I've lost the ability to
What
jump.
is W?
Oh, the W
W
jumps.
W
Yeah.
jumps. Oh my goodness, you better learn to attack pretty quickly.
Right,
Try-
and jumping on them does.
try-
Space.
Yeah,
Space doesn't. J doesn't. K doesn't. E doesn't. R doesn't. Z doesn't. X doesn't. Mouse click does.
Oh, mouse click.
Fine.
Ah, and you've got directional shooting, which is quite fun. Okay.
Yes.
Have you?
Ah, nice. That's a lovely implementation so far. Very high quality.
It feels really nice to play. Like this
Yeah.
is the first time I played a game,
Can you direct the gunfire?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Oh, hang
First time
on.
I
Oh, it
played
bounces.
a platform
Oh, wow.
in this course, and I was just like, the jumping is perfect.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
the jumping is just,
Jumping feels like
Got it.
jumping. Yeah.
it is
They got it.
intrinsically pleasing to jump in this platform.
I
That
also
is-
like
yeah.
the rising
difficult.
lava or whatever it is. That's
Yeah.
quite fun as well.
Yeah.
That's working well.
Ow.
I didn't identify that. I thought the platforms were sinking.
Well, maybe it is.
No,
but
it's not. The
it
lava
is,
is rising.
okay.
Yeah. So that's part of what's
You're
dynamically
right,
adjusted.
You're right with ammo, I think.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. Oh no,
I've
you're
got
right.
some
You've got
there,
some,
but it just wasn't
didn't
clicking.
clicking.
Okay, but quite a high quality implementation there. I reckon I can have this now that I know what's going on there.
Yeah,
go for it.
I got through it.
Okay, so you said it's adaptive difficulty.
Difficulty.
So how's it working?
So number of enemies that it spawns is based on how well you're doing. So I think was that down to health?
On each platform.
Yeah. So your amount of health indicate or adjust how many skeletons you get.
Yeah.
The average speed that you get through the level or through each of the checkpoints changes the rate of the rocks falling. I don't know if you've seen the little red things that are dropping out of the sky, and the speed of the lava going up. So the faster you get through the level, the more it adjusts that. And the shot accuracy decides whether you get more or less bullet pickups. And I said to them in the expo, I think the skeleton spawning is the only thing that really is really obvious as part of the adjustment. Like each time I played through it, I was getting a different number of skeletons at different points.
It is actually quite difficult. So yeah, I would say
It's because you're too good, Charlie.
Do you need to
the
shoot
game
skeletons, Charlie?
is
Oh, that's the other thing. You don't have to shoot
Just
because you
jump
could jump over
some
one of them.
Certainly the
Tactic.
last one.
Yeah.
So the game quality is very high, but I'm not really feeling the adaptive difficulty. It doesn't feel adaptive to me. I can understand from what you told me that there is adaptivity
Unlucky.
going on.
Oh, that was an
That
interesting
was
respawn.
punishing.
That there is adaptivity going on, but it's not. It's obviously not having a really super meaningful impact on the game because I just feel like I'm playing a very similar game each time.
So you notice you only got 3 skeletons that last time because
Yeah.
you died a couple.
No,
of
indeed,
times.
and now you tell me I can guess
But
that.
it also just feels like, oh, this is just a level where the designer has decided to give me 3 and then 5 and
Yeah.
then 2.
Oh.
Oh.
And it feels just part of the pacing as a.
Well, it's certainly challenging.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Come on, Charlie, we need to see the next level.
Yeah, indeed. Right, I'm gonna have it this time.
Go on, Charlie, you can do it.
So I think we're agreed that the game quality is good.
Yep.
There's got sound effects going on. The graphics are nice and consistent. The controls look nice.
Yeah. If you go into the games industry, guys, this is definitely one to include in your portfolio.
Yeah, so that's great. So the adaptive difficulty then, we're kind of saying that some more visibility perhaps to what was going on there? Or?
Maybe. I think in some places it is visible and other places it
Jesus.
isn't. But
So
you don't necessarily want to hit the player over the head with it. You're doing too well, Charlie.
So why do they need adaptive difficulty in this game?
Yeah, this is the thing. I don't think they do. I think they have it, but it's quite incidental, and it's not really, in my impression, adding a tremendous amount to the game. That looks like a
Yeah. Well, what's this bit though?
Just a little
cutscene.
Level complete.
bit at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a cutscene. And
Ah,
now
to
on
the
ice.
next level.
Oh, how exciting!
Fire and ice. There you
We
are.
can't afford to play this for much longer, but I'm going to have a little look at this level.
God, Charlie, you can do it, man.
I think that says something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That you're kind of that you want to
We've
play
got
it.
time to play this.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
it's
does
the
it
same
That's
fare
nice.
though. Yeah.
Nice.
Does it need the dynamic difficulty adjustment? Was the question, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if they just because it's if they just done
just
these
a
levels
design
and just
platformer.
tweaked them so they were kind of challenging to the average person,
Yeah.
or even had a basic kind of easy, medium, or hard mode or
It
something.
goes back to that question of how long do you want your player to play for?
Yeah.
Was the number of goes that Charlie took to do that level appropriate and entertaining for Charlie? Like it presumably got a little bit frustrating because it was definitely a level you knew you could complete, but you kept having to have another go at it.
Sure, I think that was maybe a little bit of difficulty adjustment. I mean, like I say, I think the quality of the game's very high here. They clearly have put in an adaptive engine that does work. However, the impact of that adaptive engine is very arguable. And I think part of that is the style of game isn't greatly suitable for adaptive difficulty, and they could have also
Ricky's gonna have a
maybe
go.
put a little bit more into it. I think,
It's just quite a fun game.
although I appreciate I'm saying this now because I've finished it, I think we do have to move on.
Oh, humbug.
So
Yeah.
I'll play again later.
Okay, right.
That's the end
So
of that
well
one.
done, guys.
Yeah,
Good work.
fun game.
So our next game is Rise of the Fallen. So, yeah.
LMB, RMB. Be careful about acronyms and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed. So I played this game. This is a sort of. Did anyone
Space
play
Bar.
Smash TV? It's
Oh,
that sort of style game. So a series of rooms of top-down shooter going on, and there's loads of zombies, and the zombies keep coming, and you run out of ammo.
Reload. Reload.
Yeah. And the reload takes a little while, and then you can finish off killing the zombies, and then you can go to the next room. And based on how you did in each room, it adapts the next room. So
what's been adapted? The number of zombies, presumably.
it's a flat difficulty adjustment. I believe it's just the number of zombies based on a combination of things, such as the amount of time that you took to do it, and the amount of bullets you used, and the amount of health that you took. But then the actual adaptivity itself is the number of zombies.
Okay.
However, there is a score thing here going on, so you get a score for killing zombies. So it actually incentivizes you. The argument here is that it incentivizes you not to just do badly, so the game is easy.
Yeah.
Because you'll get a higher score if you do well. So the idea is for replayability, you can come back, do even better. It will spawn more zombies for you, and your score will be even higher.
So a bit like a game we watched in the last one, I think there's a little metagame here that they're missing, which is combos.
Yeah.
So a really simple thing to do would be to kind of
Reload, Charlie.
would be to have kind of either the shot go through so you can kill them in a line,
Yeah,
or to have a
indeed.
grenade or something,
Or even just your
and
kill
you're like,
streak.
okay, what I'll do is I'll let them cluster near me, and then I can get out of the way and drop a grenade on them, and I can get
To
a
give you
big
some
score
more
at once.
choices of what to do.
To give you some more meaningful
Because at
choices.
the moment you move and shoot at where the enemy is.
And it would make the adaptive difficulty again more meaningful, because the more zombies you have, the more opportunity you have for doing those kind of skill shots.
Yeah.
Indeed. So there is also, which I'll try and be good enough to get to, there's a boss at the end, and the amount of health the boss has is also a factor of how well you've done on the previous levels.
Reload, Charlie, reload!
Oh right, God, Ricky!
but again, this is like, maybe this should be a factor. This should be maybe if I let them accrue, right, and then I can kill a whole bunch of them all at once, and I get some bonus points. Or
Yeah, indeed. Or like
an
change the
automatic
style of
gun,
playing
that'd be
or
helpful.
Yes. Nuke.
You guys
Yeah.
didn't see the look Charlie just gave me.
something. Right, so let's try and get this map done. Oh, some of these
So
zombies.
the adjustment's quite simple though, isn't it? I guess
It
it's
is,
down
that's
to
the
the,
thing, it's-
the lack of another mechanic that you could adjust.
But I think what's interesting is because it's so short and they all appear at once, it's actually quite effective. So putting a
You
whole
see the
ton of
adjustment.
zombies on screen at once, as opposed to 2 or 3 of them here or there on this part of the maze or that part of the maze, because you're in this kind of this cauldron of the rooms.
Yeah.
It works,
Apparent, isn't
actually.
it? So there's the boss zombie.
The other thing that's worth commending about this is the stages. By breaking into rooms, it makes it very
Yes.
easy to do that adjustment regularly. Like the issue with the
then you get
platform.
a little finish screen where you can see your
that's
score
quite
and
cute. I
things.
like the fact you can move around it.
Yeah,
That's
indeed.
really nice.
Some of the games adjust so much in the flow of play that you're too
Yes.
caught up in the flow of play to see it. Whereas when you've got these sort of discrete changes of level, then you can.
So does it flag up how many zombies you're getting as you come into each room? I didn't notice.
It doesn't
You've
actually
got the-
tell you, no. It just
So I mean, might be nice to give you some information about what was coming.
immediate feedback. So maybe that's one of the interesting things of this adaptive difficulty, right? Is being able to notice the adaptivity that's going on. Okay, making it apparent and giving that feedback.
Yeah.
I do think there's a couple of things here. So it is definitely, first of all, it's implemented adaptive difficulty and it's done it well.
Ricky's having a go now.
Yeah, which is good. However, it is quite a simple implementation of adaptivity, right? It's maybe not as sophisticated as it could be from the user modeling perspective. However, the idea of using it in this idea of sort of iterative plays in order to get better scores and things is quite a novel use of it. It encourages you, incentivizes replay and making it good and doing it well.
So presumably to do that, it does remember you between deaths and it remembers your state.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't remember your score. No, but the thing is, you have to do well in the. Oh, hang on, that's bugged. Either that or it did really bad.
There's no UI.
So I think.
The replay button doesn't quite
Okay.
work.
So we've crashed out.
I'm going to restart.
Yeah,
Carry on, Charlie.
So yeah, the what I was trying to say there is that I like this idea of being able to being able to encourage the user to sort of replay and using the adaptive difficulty as part of the incentivizing it to do well, because if you don't do well enough in the early levels, you won't have enough zombies in order to improve your score, and that's something a little bit more novel in this area.
So it is meaningful for the player of the game. It does kind of have some sort of sense, and I said
also it's
really
about
effective
making it
on
harder
all
as well,
levels.
right? It's a lot of time adaptive difficulty is a question of how much easier can we make it. This game actually incentivizes you to make your own game harder, as it were.
I'd like some feedback. I'd like to have how angry are the zombies bar.
Yeah.
So I've got some measure of how well am I doing, and
No, I
I've
agree.
made them furious on this level, and now when I go to the next level, there'll be a horde of them, And you could do a lot more with the kind of they've gone for very simplistic visuals, which is absolutely fine. But you could have done a bit more with those kind of information feedback. Giving you some
Almost
feedback
give
at
it
the end of each room to say
some narrative there.
Yeah,
of
a little bit of what's going on.
Okay, I think we'd have to move on now. Yeah, that's a good game and a good use of simple adaptivity there, but perhaps a bit more you could do with it. Okay, so next up we have Dungeon Adventure.
Yep. So I looked at this one. So it's space to attack, and basically you explore the dungeon, kill the enemies, and pick up the keys.
Gotcha.
And
So
you're
it's a
looking
roguelike,
for,
basically.
It's a roguelike. You're looking for an exit to the next level.
Okay. Is it a procedural generation, I assume?
Yes. So
A
basically,
roguelike.
So basically, what's going on is it's a entirely generated dungeon. If I remember rightly, there's a little bit of adaptive generation in that adaptive difficulty rather in that the contents of the dungeon change a little bit according to how well you're doing, but the main part is the generation of the dungeon itself. They've got quite an interesting algorithm for generating this. So basically, the world starts full. They then randomly fill it with a room, and then randomly sort of spear off a corridor to create a new room, and they keep doing that, overlapping the rooms as they go. And it ends up with some quite interesting spaces. So I think it worked quite well.
It's quite a clever approach to that.
It ends up with some nice spaces. It means you get you haven't found one yet, but it means you get spaces which aren't just rooms. They're kind of different sizes and different shapes and. So somewhere, you're still level 0. So where's
sounds
the?
a bit like playing Castle of Mad King where you've just got corridors and
Sure.
blobs just hanging.
So at the moment, I haven't really found where I'm going.
No, and in fact, I'm wondering whether I'm trying to remember if they said they did any checks.
So it might be possible that
Whether it's actually possible to get to the exit.
you explored everywhere. Can't you?
If you go down, I don't think you've been. No, you haven't been to some of these places, have you?
I don't know, the fact they're empty makes me think I might have done.
Keep on going down.
Did you go left there?
Yeah, I think I did.
That's new. So like this space here, for example, this is quite a fun.
Yeah, sort of U-shaped one.
And yeah, it works quite well.
Here we go. It's a bit more of original stuff here.
So it's simple, but it's quite effective. You can play it quite
indeed.
quite well.
I mean, procedural generations for roguelikes is the classic implementation
Yeah.
because they're very well suited to it, and it's. It encourages this sort of idea of exploration, which is exactly what I'm doing now, and I've lost some runs.
So again, I think there are some basic game design problems in that. Why are you doing this, right? What are you trying to achieve? What's fun about what you're doing?
Sure.
And I think that is lacking. But the procedural generation part of it works quite well. I mean, you can have argument about the meaningfulness of it.
Yeah. I don't know, because the key part of the game is exploration. Procedural generation keeps that fresh, right?
It is.
But also part of procedural generation is variety, and I don't think there's a lot of variety in this game.
So for me, for the procedural generation, there's the exit. For the procedural generation to really work in this kind of roguelike, you have to have some reason for pushing forward and exploring, and here you don't.
What are you trying to find?
So I think as an incentive, and making choices and deciding what you're going to do and how you're going to play, and there's no score, there's no timer. It's not like you're under pressure. So I think those kind of basic elements are a problem.
Is there any puzzle to this key collection?
They open the chest.
I'm not even sure how the number of keys relates to the number of chests. It might be entirely random.
You could checkpoint some or bottleneck some of your bits of your level design.
Yeah,
the only way of getting through it is getting the key, and there is a key somewhere, and that forces the exploration to find the keys.
So, or even something simpler than that. Basically saying, look, we'll make sure that there's not enough keys for the chest. So one of your choices is to decide which chests to open, and then making it apparent from the look of the chests the sorts of things that might be in it, right? So, what do are you going to go for health stuff, or are you going to go for increased armor, or what are you going to do? And they've got things like you open that one. I think it was some poison. I think. And it's just like. It's just entirely random, so you've got no way of knowing what's going to be in there. Because it's a roguelike, you can't remember that it was a poison chest. So it genuinely is completely unfair, right? It's just like.
Sure. Okay, fair enough.
It's like Prince of Persia, the original, but they move where the spikes appear. It's just kind of.
Okay. I think that's I'm satisfied with that. I think we should move on there.
So I mean it's a solid game, isn't it? You can play it.
It's reasonable, and I think the procedural generation encourages the notion of exploration, which is a big part of roguelikes. But like you say, there's a few sort of game design aspects there that need a little bit of careful attention.
What are you exploring for? So
Yeah.
what would make more sense to me would be if they had sort of little set pieces. So they had kind of boss fights that were in the dungeon somewhere.
Yeah.
So what you're doing on every level is like, right, I know in this level somewhere there is a boss fight with some cool treasure, right?
Yeah.
And my objective is to try and find the boss, kill the boss, get the treasure, move on to the next level.
Precisely.
And just have some momentum to it.
Look at classic roguelikes, right? Things like NetHack, okay, where you were looking for a combination of sort of gold in order to get your score up and food to keep yourself alive to get more gold. Or more recent implementations like Binding of Isaac, where you're exploring in order to find the items in order to take on those more challenging enemies later on, right? So you need a bit of motivation there, and I think that's
absolutely. I mean, you'll find that in the even the Blizzard's Diablo and all the successors, exactly the same. You've got that kind of motivation of very complex items and item combinations that kind of drives you through the game. You've got the kind of the boss battles. You've got designed areas which are randomly situated within the randomly generated dungeon spaces.
This feels a bit.
So there's the reasons to explore and reasons to do it.
It's a bit too early of a mechanics demo, and it's
Yes.
not quite got that level of game above it.
So it's a good start, I think.
But it is.
You
could well done one of those.
Yeah, it's a good
nice
start.
to play
It's nice to play. Lots of potential to it, but just not quite far enough in the development, I think, to show off what they were trying to achieve.
Agreed.
Should we go on?
Okay, let's move on. Yeah. So this new one is Maze to the End.
So as you can see, it's a dual play one. So basically, we need to find the green tile. We're both in the maze. We're kind of sort of weird
Very
floaty
claustrophobic,
spheres.
isn't it?
God, yeah.
So just a little hint: if you bash up against the wall, you can look through it.
Just like real mazes.
And also,
just like real mazes, yeah.
And I bashed up against the wall there as well because I was in the process of
fun.
turning it, kept turning until I told it to stop.
Oh,
Okay, so is it procedural generation?
So it's a procedure generated maze. They use, if I remember rightly, one of the standard maze algorithms. And it's pretty effective actually. It works well at generating a maze.
Yeah.
Is the player a ball?
The player is a ball. You can at some point Charlie and I will bump into each other.
We'll see each other. How big's the maze? Been going for ages.
So it's not only the size of the maze; it's also how near you are to the green tile. Ah, there you go. I found the green tile.
Dave is the winner.
Dave wins. Oh, and we're off again. Okay.
So
Oh, there you go. Where you gone, Charlie?
it feels odd that there's a
There you are.
scoreboard on something that's quite slow paced.
Yeah.
There's Charlie.
If there were 50 green tiles in the thing and you were racing to get as many as you can,
Yeah.
Yes.
There he
then
is.
the scoreboard sort of makes sense. But
There he is. Look.
that's it. Just
So-
follow Charlie.
Yeah, exactly. So again, so the procedural generation worked just fine, but I think
Definitely a maze.
again it's the game design. It was actually more fun to try and follow Charlie, for example, than it is to try and find the green tile.
Well, it's just navigating a maze, isn't it?
Because there's so little to go on. And also the controls are quite awkward. So if I come around the corner, like if I come around here and I want to find out if there's an exit, I have to turn, and I turn quite slowly.
Yeah.
So I think if it was me, I'd have sped up the movement quite considerably.
Well, also as well, by doing split screen vertical rather than split screen horizontal, you've reduced the field of view of the player.
Yeah, that's
They
a very
can't
good point.
see what's
There's
necessary.
no benefit to seeing up and down in a
No,
maze.
it isn't.
So I wouldn't mind betting if they'd done a horizontal split and they'd done something like quadrupled the speed, it would actually be a lot more fun to play.
Yeah.
And then you could potentially have added other elements in and taken more advantage of the fact there's another person in here. So even if, for example, people left a trail, so I came along and I could see where Charlie had gone, and I could then make a decision about, all right, I'm gonna head off in a different direction or something, or.
But there's nothing that varies the pace or stops the other player. So even if you do find them, if they're en route to the green tile, that's it. It's game over, isn't it?
But again, maybe there's something where if I interacted with his trail in some way, it slows him down. Or
yeah, that's what I mean.
Or you can move on their trail faster or something like that. Increases your speed.
That
we could talk extra mechanics till the cows come home. But I guess at the end of the day, what we have to think about here is this is a procedural generation piece of coursework, and has it made a good use of procedural generation? I guess in a game like this, procedural generation is essential because otherwise it'd have no replayability. You wouldn't be able to compete with people or not because you'd know the route from the maze and that would be it.
But again, I think it comes back to, and we've said it on a couple of the other ones, that if the reason we're talking about the mechanics are because if the mechanics are not complex enough, there's no reason for the procedural generation to work in a particular way. And that's why it feels a bit kind of a little bit vanilla, if you like. Whereas I think if there was more things that you could do within the game, then that algorithm would have more to play with and more to hook onto, and would be doing something more interesting.
How many plays do you think that it would take to learn this maze? I don't think you'd ever learn it. There's no signposting. There's no way of knowing which section you're in. You learn
it's almost impossible.
You learn multiplayer FPS maps because there are regions that you're like, oh, I'm in this section now.
Yeah, I mean you might recognise individual junctions and things over time. It's difficult to say with any certainty. But yeah, I think I'm done. All right.
Charlie's upset that he can't find the green tile.
What's the other thing as well? I'm starting to get suspicious actually on this level that they haven't done validation and there isn't a way to reach it.
So did the level regenerate between?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it does. So the green tile is kind of placed randomly as well. If I remember right, I think the green tile is also the distance isn't consistent either, so it could be near or it could be far. And again, there's another thing you could do is just put a little counter in to tell you, or some sort of compass thing to tell you either which direction it was, or hotter or colder, or distance to the target or something. And again, it's about meaningful choices. I come to a junction, very few meaningful choices to me, unless I have literally memorised it, which, if you're watching me play, I clearly haven't.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone ever would.
So,
I think
so an effective game, you can play it, it works, but I don't think it's anywhere near as fun as it could be, and I think actually just some simple things would have improved it dramatically.
Sure.
And would also then given you some stuff to get your teeth into with the generation algorithm.
Sure.
Okay, so that was our last game of this batch. So we'll be back shortly with the last batch of 5, and then we've got 2 additional ones which are VR games, which I think we're going to do separately.